Hi, this is Professor Kim Nelson with the Jewelry Design Department at the Fashion Institute of Technology. Another tutorial in our series of tutorials for 3D modeling and Rhino modeling jewelry. This is continuing on the floral brooch tutorial. Where we left this off, I had just done the leaves for the brooch. Now I want to do one of the petals for the brooch. One of the challenges that I am facing is a shortage of layers I can use to work on. So I can give myself two right here. Interesting. Okay, those are useful. I'm through with these for now, so. Okay. Fine. So, that's a good setup. This is about the most difficult petal that I have. So this is the one I'm going to work on. Picking up where we left off, do the same technique. Create UV curves. There is the flat curvature. Which I will move over here to the side. I'm going to go ahead and move my reference down. So it's in a more useful position for what I'm going to do. Explode that, and by rail sweep it. Check the grain of the surface, vertical, horizontal, swap UV, double check. Rebuild. This one is currently at 7.9. So set this to the same. So our flow kit is in good shape. I'm going to commence modeling. Okay, I have 3 levels in this model, and I have actually, as I drew it, had created a step and then an understep. If I actually look at my drawing here, I did that primarily to honor this fold. But I think now that I look at it, that I could actually make that work as one surface all the way across. I think that's worth trying to do. Bold maneuver. Let's see. Find out. Trim. Now, here's the thing though. In order to do that, I have to create a single surface that I then bend or tuck down in, so it makes that effect. And to do that is a little different strategy than what I have here, which is fine. For some reason, this does not want to trim. There we go. Thank you. Explode. It's got to at least come above where this tucks in here. And I need the rotation angle. To roughly follow along the top edge of this. Now I have to understand that when I make this, I'm making a sacrifice. It will not have as crisp an inside corner as this when I'm done, and I have to be okay with that. If I'm not okay with that, I have to find a different way to approach this. I'm going to split this curve. That's the one I want to split. That's fine. Take that top piece off, extend by arc to point. Something that'll give me a strong collision course. To split that a little higher up. Okay, fill it. Unusual that that didn't go better than I thought, but I thought it should. So fill it again. Okay, that's better. And the same thing, I'm going to split. Point. And fill it. Okay. So these are my new curves. I'm going to rebuild. It looks to be fine. Split this curve, this curve, join these two together, rebuild again. And allow that to smooth out a little. this a try. So now I'm going to do a swept surface. This is kind of important, but it's really getting in my way of seeing, so I'm going to come in here to Materials, take that transparency up a bit, so it's still there to look at, but not as obvious. It's better. Viral sweep, rail, rail, section, section, add slashes. That's pretty good. Rebuild to something useful. I have 40 going this way right now. I should be able to get by with 18, I think. Looks pretty good. And I like to do normally 7 to start with going across. That's my new surface. And turn on my control points. I want to move my center line so that it lines up. See, that fades out about here. So actually, I really only need to move 2 of these. And the rest will just be transitioning back to fitting in with the rest of the grain of the piece. Like so. And you'll recall from the previous tutorials that I try and get the center ISO curve to actually follow along. I'll start adding knots and moving points to try and achieve that now. Careful. Keep this one as true to being in line with the rest of its points as I can. Points in that row. Moving points in a group like this gives you a little more consistency. Of course, it also has a lot more impact on the piece, so it's a trade-off. Okay, that's bringing that a little closer to where I want it. Go ahead and shift these over. Essentially getting this as lined up as I can before I start to add points. Alright, insert a knot. Symmetrical. And I need to have real good control over this crease, so I'm going to let these come in fairly tight, like so. Once again, I'm not trying to keep this much beyond this level, so let it start to fade out. It's really important that I'm trying to fix this grain of the surface as well, if you would, before I start doing three-dimensional modeling. Because once I do three-dimensional modeling, once I get started with that, it gets much more complicated to control. Feel a nice flow going through here, through here. I think that's a pretty good compromise. And now I will start to do three-dimensional modeling. Extrude. I want to make sure I get the surface edge. If I have to, I'll turn the curves off. Just some nice depth. Most of that will get cut away anyway, so turn on the points. Got to explode extrusions first, then turn on the points. And begin to sculpt. I can tell from what I'm looking at here that this has some pretty aggressive drop to it, but that the drop is more severe on this side than it is this. When I have this narrow flute here, there's only so far down that can drop. So I've got that. It's interesting. I'm gonna think about that a little bit more. I want the end section to make sense, so I'll start by doing that. Over here, I want to have a good drop off. Over here, substantially less of a drop off. Okay, now I'll it's interesting the kind of, oh, it's because I have this underneath. There. That double surface shading was making it a little more difficult for me to see what I was going to be getting. Once again, just looking for a reasonably elegant transition from side to side. And there we go. Surface edit tool match. Okay. Turn on points. This is that center line. And I'm primarily interested in that area. Okay, now if I look at what I have going on, it's going to do something that I don't really want here, because what I really want to see happen here is I want to see the end of it roll under. So before dragging to make sure I get the top points on the extrusion as well. Going to a little bit less than that. Try and do some controlled lasso selections. And then continue. And I have little hope of getting this last row selected that way, so these up. If I don't want to have to, I could have done see, that's bad, I got that extra point there. I could use a non-uniform scale as well and leave this point where it is. But if I'm not going to non-uniform scale the points from the top surface, I have to also grab the points at the top edge of the lower two surfaces so that it all moves together. Either way would be fine. I'm feeling a little more controlled with this approach. Move that up. And that will give me the roll-off that I'm hoping for. Okay, now I want to shade. Okay, now using this approach, I'm going to have to make some shifts and changes eventually because I have a whole big chunk of surface hanging up here that I don't want to see. But for now, I'll keep working. Now I'll grab the center row. Really don't want anything behind there. For starters, and drop it. You can see that it is following where I wanted it to follow, which is good. Just want to see something. What happens if I do that? Yeah, this is the challenge of trying to work this surface in this direction. Is that I very important that I drag window selections around everything I want. Otherwise I won't move the side walls, the side extrusions. Along with the top surface. Okay, that gives me some of what I want through there. And it's okay that it doesn't go perfectly well at first. I know I'm going to have to come back that does start to give me the shapes that I want. Now when I start to get points close together like that, it's important to take a look three-dimensionally and see what it is that I'm creating. Okay, I don't want to move. That third point right away. And once again, the fact that this is strange, that doesn't bother me at this point. It can be useful to unfortunately, I think the command I'm looking for is under visibility. So, select U, and then I can click on this and it will invert the selection and hide points so that the only row of control points I see is this one. And that can be helpful. For resolving problems at a very local level. Using my shift key so I can move straight up and down. I actually moved a point below the edge, which I can't do. You want that to continue to make sense. So, show points. The real challenge I'm facing, and I had predicted this, is getting points down into this corner. The rule of thumb in Rhino is if you want a corner, you have to bring points almost on top of each other. So, the 3 rows surrounding the center. Just break those out and look at those. Okay. I'm just moving it back in a very messy way to see how far back that's going to have to go to give me what I want. Something in that area. To get that V, okay. Need to find my center row again. Going to create a C-plane. Project this point to C-plane. You can see they're very nearly on top of each other. Going to project this point to C-plane. This basically gets all of them lined up at the same level, which makes it a little easier for me to then get what I want from them. I would like the point to line up directly above that point. And the same thing is true of this point. Bring some alignment back in with the rest of the control points that I've had to really kind of break a nice relationship in form to get the contour that I wanted. Now as I see this leaving that center line, that iso curve, I will adjust it so that it comes back on. Somewhere in that area. Okay. Show points. Gonna grab this row, and this row, and this row, the three on that side. And same thing, I want to project at least this one. If I project that to C-plane, I start to really mess with what's happening over here. I'm certainly going to move this one down. And then from the top, move it over. Because I need to fill in this shape. And it's entirely possible that I may end up having to bring in more, another knot, more control points to do this. But if I can get by with the points I have, I will make a good effort to do that. Now, see that point? I really couldn't move it. This is actually part of the tangency from the side. I have to remember that. So actually, this outer rim is sacrosanct. I can't really move it. So I'll move this row to get as close as I can. And that'll have to be good enough. Alright, so that side is giving me largely what I want. But I don't see this being so high, so deep here. So I'm going to release that elevation, which will take some of the tension off of that surface as well. As it comes up on over that. I don't make decisions all the way back. Where I see the problem, I make the revisions, and then I'll decide if I want to do more later. I would like this to center up on top. Of that point in the XY direction, and then move down. The reason I keep centering them up on top of the end point is if I want to extrude straight down, I can get a smoothness coming off of that, which might be desirable at the end of the day. Now, bring this down, bring that down, both of these down. Remember, when you're sculpting with control points, you keep rotating your view around a little bit so that you can keep track of what's going on. Obviously, what's happening back here is not nice. I'm not really worried about that right now, though. Handling one problem at a time. Okay, now I have what's going on the other side. So unhide points. I think I'm going to bring this point down a bit as well. And this one. Letting the whole end of the petal kind of fall over a little bit. Okay. All right, that's not terrible. Now I want to play with what's going on with the crease itself here. Take a look at my reference. That crease is going to about where I want it to go. What I really see happening here is I see this coming over and then this kind of flattening out. So what I want to see is I want to see these points dropping. This one in particular. And this is typical of how I'll model when I'm doing this, is I'll make pretty drastic shifts and changes in one place, and then I will smooth out the impact of that to see if I like it. Actually, I wasn't sure I had a hold of the z-axis. Very important to make sure I have a hold of the z-axis right there. So I think that is kind of giving me what I want. So now I need to bring some of these other points into line with that. This is my center line. I want to look at how those steps are looking. And get a nice even coming slightly up, coming slightly down. And good. Show points, shade. Okay. Afraid the gumball's getting me some distortion I don't want, so I'm going to go back to traditional M-enter here. Move command. And changing my C-planes if I want a vertical. Control of the C-plane, the control points. Following that. Following this. Taking out this bump here. Smoothing things down a little bit. Okay, that's not bad. I think I overdid it a little bit. Put some elevation back in. Alongside that V, that groove. Feeling kind of a squirreliness in how that, groove is looking. So I'll fix that. Now this is jumping up quite a ways. But I think what I'm going to do now is add a knot. And I don't want symmetrical this time. I just want it here. This is going to be important because it's going to allow me to bring this right over on, close to being on top of that crease. It'll tighten it, sharpen it, which I think would be nice. Right through there. with some elevations. Isolate those back out again. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that for the basic groove. Bring back my reference. I might want a little more fullness up on top of here. It's a little bit flat. And I don't think I do have a row of points there that I want to use. Cool. Just to give it a little more roundness, a little more fullness. Really important, once again, to keep moving the view around a lot to see what it is that you're doing. So that you can get a good sense of what's actually going on as you model this. Okay, I think that that's pretty good. Wouldn't hurt to map it to see what I have going on and turn off the flat shading. It's not bad. That's not bad at all. I'm going to see how it looks flowed. Take off ghosted. Now it feels pretty sharp and crisp over here, but once again I have another element that I have to put there, so there's a reason why I've left it like that. I actually quite like the way this is fading out. I think it's attractive. I think that's successful. So the only thing left to do with this motif is to figure out how I'm going to close it off, because everything has to be a solid at the end of it. I can take an edge from this and project it to C-plane and extrude it, and use this surface to trim it. Grab the bottom row points, project them to C-plane. Oh, not to C-plane, sorry. Move them up. And that should give me a capped end. It will not be perfectly smooth. And this is due to the fact that there was no way to roll that off in a perfectly smooth fashion. I tried to line up points above points so that it would be more smooth. This is true of all the points along the edge here. So I can help it. This one's already there. This point got moved out of sync, so I can put on point, project, bring that point directly over the top of that point. That will help smooth that transition. And these are already, I've already moved these into that position, I'm sure. Yeah. So, there was one point I could actually sweeten that up a little bit for. Still going to see this slight creasing at the edge, and there's really not a lot I can do about that. Part of this is going to be overlapped by another element, so we'll lose a portion of that, and this seam here is going to be pretty much unavoidable. Let's see if there's anything better I can do. As far as point orientation, as far as bringing points above. I do have a point right here. That I could move into position. Okay, I don't know what that did to my form. Hopefully nothing terrible. It's not bad. Since this is now 2 points on top of each other, I can move them together to restore some of that. Which means I'm going to have to redo that edge. see if that was able to improve things at all. Once again, duplicate edge, project to C-plane, extrude straight. Catch the end, trim it off, join it all together. And EMAP. That is better. I have this slight trace, and there's really not a lot. The only thing I could do is I could insert a knot here. Now once I do that, I'm just going to change everything a little bit, but it shouldn't change it much. And I can grab this point and that will create more of a straight roll off. But the exchange for that is it's going to give me a little sharper point there. Any chance of doing the same thing over here? I can try. Once again, redo that edge surface. But you see, it didn't really help anything. In fact, I think it's worse. As nice as we're going to get. Now this is what I would use a program like 3D Coat for, sculpting software, would be to come in and clean that up a little bit and close off the back. Extrude straight up, trim off, join, cap, and we have a block. Flow. And we can see it. Okay. Now, what we did is going to have some challenging impacts with the way I decided to go about doing this. Instead of my initial plan, which was just to do two separate surfaces here, to do it in one, is going to have some challenging effects. Now, by the way, I'm seeing some bulging here that I don't love, that I can work on later. What I want to show you is the back sheets, which in this case are not in the dark blue. beige, not brown. Red. Yes, red. Okay, so this is the back sheet coming off of this original flow surface. One of the first things we notice is how this is being bitten into by this leaf. I'm not really concerned about that because there's a whole other element that rises higher than that, which is going to actually make that relationship about right. Of course, I can move things around. That flexibility thing is key. But what I want to see is this is going to cut a lot of this rounded area off. It's going to give me an effect like this, which is not what I want. So I'm going to have to adjust this back sheet to accommodate that rolling effect off the end, which is fine. It's just something I have to be aware of. I modeled something very dimensional, which is going to have repercussions on how I do the back. But aside from that, not bad. Okay, I will continue modeling on this in the next video. That's it for now. Thanks for watching.